sportsmen and deer hunters of all ages. This is Gunsmoke's Big Buck Hunting Tips, and this here is Stumpy, a beautiful 11 pointer I took in early November of the 2011 hunting season. This beautiful young buck has got it all going for him. He's got large main beams, good long points, and good main beam points. He's a beautiful buck, dark phased buck, scored well on the Boone and Crockett system. He scored out at 158 and 7/8, so that puts him in the Canadian record book. And he also took second place in the Shelburne County Fish and Game Big Buck Show that they held last year in early June. So well pleased with this buck. He's my best buck up to date. In all my hunting years I've been deer hunting. And this show we're going to be doing today is based on 43 years of experience in the backwoods hunting these whitetail deer. And I'm going to share with you my knowledge and skills that I've learned in them 43 years of hunting these whitetail bucks. And I'm sure these tips and stuff I'll be telling you today will help you make your own luck when it comes to putting one of these big boys on the wall like Stumpy here. Hello, I'm Fred Gunsmoke Chatling, and today we're going to start the show off with the basic hunting gear that you will need before you even leave to go in the woods in one of these hunting trips. So we're going to start off with some of the basic gear, which is your hunting rifle. And that's absolutely, you're going to need a good choice of rifle, and or a bow if you're a dedicated bow hunter. Now, hunter orange is the law in our area. You must have that on at all times, and you also must have with you a good working compass, waterproof matches, and a choice of a small hatchet would be a good choice to fit into your bullet belt to have with you. If you're shooting a semi-automatic rifle, you want to definitely need a spare clip, a good choice of hunting boots that fit properly so they're not going to chafe your feet, and a good choice of hunting clothes, which I would recommend it would be of a wool fabric to make them very, very quiet when walking through cover. They're not making the noise that some of the suits I have seen make. And from there we're going to go into some other basic stuff you're going to need, such as this is just common sense stuff. Maybe you'd like to have a cell phone with you. They got the GPS systems out now that show you where you are at all times. Turn it on track and track wherever you go, from the camp right back, no problem. Maybe you'd like to have a walkie-talkie to talk to your hunting buddy with. And all this equipment is just going to make you a more productive hunter and feel safe about being in the woods with having all this equipment on you. And you concentrate on your deer hunting, not worrying about where you are or where you got to go. With this equipment, you can go deer hunting and worry about putting that big guy on the wall. Okay, this next subject we're going to touch on here is your choice of your deer hunting rifle. Now, this is something that you're going to have to take in consideration and do some studying on, because this rifle is going to be for you in the area you hunt in, either over a bait pile or an old chopping or an area that the deer is going to come out very close to you. So your caliber of rifle you want to choose carefully for your hunting area you're going to be hunting in. We'll say you're laying in a little small chopping with bait out. 30-30 caliber rifle has got all the punch you need to take a deer close range. if you're into an old burnt area or an old cut off wood lot, you might want to reach out a little farther to the 308 with a 180 grain bullet. Then you can bump it up from there to a little more open areas to the 30-06, which is an all-around deer hunting rifle, no matter which situation you're in. Then you can go up from there. There's no limit. You've got your 300 short mags, you got your 7mm express, 7mm magnums, 300 H&H magnums. It just goes on and on and on. But what I'm trying to tell you is, choose the right weapon, the right deer hunting rifle for the area you're going to be hunting in. Now, me personally, I went with the Remington 280 semi-automatic. And I'm going to tell you why. The semi-automatic. This rifle allows me to get some quick follow-up shots. If the first shot cripples the deer and he's going stumbling, I don't have to take my face out of my scope. I can just keep shooting. And on a running deer, I keep my eye on my scope, follow the deer, and keep squeezing the trigger. That is why I always carry a spare clip ready to go in my hunting coat pocket at all times. If I drain one clip on a running deer, I pop it out and I pop this one in. I'm ready to go again. And it makes a big difference, because as long as I can see that deer, I'm going to keep shooting till I'm out of bullets. And that's the reason I chose the semi-automatic, where a lot of you might be comfortable with the bolt action or the lever action or the pump action. It's your choice. And on this Remington 280, the choice of bullet I chose was the Remington 280 150 grain core lock soft point. And I'll tell you why. The Remington 280 shoots a 30-06 cartridge. The neck of the cartridge has been ground down to 28 caliber. That's what a 280 is, a 28 caliber. And the bullet that's in the neck of the cartridge is a 150 grain core lock soft point. The entrance wound on a deer is no bigger than the bullet is itself. But when this bullet passes through a deer, it mushrooms into a mushroom shape. And the exit wound is a massive wound. This bullet will do it all. The 150 grain bullet is a flat shooting bullet. In this rifle, I topped it with a 6-24 power varmint scope made by Tasco. It's got a built-in bullet compensator right in it. At 500 yards, and I turn this scope up to 24 power, I bring my target in from 500 yards to 39.5 yards, so I see what I am shooting at. There's still a lot of hunters out there that still love to use the old open sights on their rifle, which is fine. If you're used to shooting your rifle with open sights and are comfortable with shooting with open sights, do so. But the advantage of the scope over the open sight is when just dusk or dawn, your scope will allow more light in to your eye, that you can see better what you're shooting at, instead of looking down the barrel of a dark rifle coming on dark, trying to line your sights up with the deer. Now, some people don't have no problem with it. In younger eyes, you don't have no problem with it, but as you get a little older, your eyes get a little bad, and I know there's a lot of guys leave the open sights behind and go to the scope for that reason itself, because they can see the deer better in the scope with fading light, because the scope gathers all visible light there is left in the sky will filter into your scope, and you can see your target clearer. And that's what will happen if you shoot a scope in the daylight or dark, coming on dark. It'll give you a big advantage on what you're shooting at. Alright, this next subject we're going to talk about is marksmanship. When you make your decision on the choice of rifle you're going to buy for your deer hunting, and regardless if you're going to use it with open sights or top it with a nice scope, the first thing you can do is get that scope bore sighted. Most dealerships will bore sight your scope for you right on the spot. Then go join your local rifle club. Make a decision on what grain of bullet you're going to shoot in this rifle for your deer hunting, but stick to that grain of bullet. Once you line that scope up with that grain of bullet, stay with it. Be comfortable with it. Go out to your local gun club, rifle club, take a box of bullets, get the rifle lined up properly. And one of the basic things you got to remember in lining up a rifle, most scopes at 100 yards, it's 4 clicks to the inch on 100 yards. That's your up and down elevation, your left to right. 4 clicks to the inch on 100 yards. If you're not finding no bullets on the target at 100, if you have to come into 50 yards to line the rifle up, remember, from 100 to 50, it's 8 clicks to the inch at 50 yards. Both dials, left and right and up and down. Still, if you're having trouble and you got to come into 25 yards to see where this rifle is shooting, where it's new scope and everything, at 25 yards, it's 16 clicks to the inch. So you got to keep that in mind. Don't be using the same 4 clicks to the inch out at 100 and you get into 25 and start and go in 4 clicks to the inch and you say, well, I'm not seeing nothing. You're not going to see nothing. So practice with this rifle, get it lined up, dead on at 100 yards and shoot it. Because this is what's going to bring you a trophy like Stumpy on your wall. You know where that rifle is shooting and you're comfortable with shooting that rifle. Crack off. If it takes 2 or 3 boxes of bullets, so what? You know when that shot comes that you are going to be very comfortable with that shot and you're going to make a good clean kill shot on that animal. And if you got that in the back of your mind, it's going to make you a better hunter. But you got to know your rifle. If you're shooting a semi-automatic like I am, they have got to be kept absolutely clean. These are gas operated rifles. It can't be plugged full of pine spills and hackmatack spills. You got to keep them clean at all times to make sure they're going to work properly. That's the last thing you want is a malfunction on a big buck running by you and you get one shot off, miss the deer, and your rifle is jammed. There you are. You got nothing in it. It'll make for the miserablest fall you ever spent in your life. Believe me, I know. Now, if you get into the bolt actions, you can get away with a lot more than that because you can throw a bolt action rifle down in a mud pile, pick it up and rack it, it's going to work. But what I'm trying to stress to you is, if you're shooting a semi-automatic, keep it absolutely clean. Make sure it's in perfect shooting order at all times. There's no room for error. When you and Mr. Trophy Buck are standing eye in eye, you want that rifle working and you want to know how to shoot it. Okay, this next subject I'm going to talk about, which I think is the most important subject of all, is rifle safety. This is no BB gun. This is a high-powered rifle. There's no room for error with this. If you're careless walking behind another hunter with this tucked up under your arm, not checking your safety to make absolutely sure that your safety is on, that goes off, there's no second chances for you. You've had it. So what I want to stress is make sure you're very, very careful when walking behind another hunter. Buy yourself a nice sling for your rifle. Over your shoulder, the barrel is pointed up out of the way, so that looks after that part of it. Now when it comes to tree stands, I see a lot of guys will get up the tree stand with the rifle tied on by the barrel below them on a string, loaded, even though safety's on, and haul that rifle up that tree towards them, with it thumping and banging on every branch as it comes up, and little do they know, they're looking right down the barrel of a high-powered rifle. It only takes that one little tunk, safety on a knot, that rifle could discharge. Wouldn't be a pretty sight. Make sure your rifle is unloaded when you get to your tree stand. You can leave the clip in. Make sure the breech is clear. When you hoist your rifle up a tree stand, you tie your hoisting string around the pistol grip here. So when you get up in your tree stand, when you haul that rifle up to you, the barrel is pointed down, even though you know it's unloaded, but still the barrel is pointed down. And once you get that rifle in the tree stand with you, you can reload the rifle, check your safe, make sure the safe is on, and you want it sitting very close to you. I see, even myself, I've done this. Laid my rifle way out on a branch to one side of me, and you look, and here comes a buck. You don't want to be reaching, a little bit of adrenaline flowing, and reaching for your rifle. You want your rifle either across your lap or directly across in front of you, so you can easily get at it, snap your safe off, and get ready for the shot. And another part is carrying this in the woods. We'll say you're asked for permission to hunt on private property, and there's a fence line there. You come to that fence line. Don't try to go over the fence with this loaded rifle on your back. Slide the rifle in under the fence and step over the fence a few feet away from where your rifle is laying, so you don't step on it. Then you can pick your rifle up again over your shoulder and away you go. But beware at all times of the safety concerns of one of these big boys. It's a very, very dangerous weapon, and you got to have safety in your mind at all times. I know, even though you're deer hunting, first day of the season, you're excited, but that's the day that you're going to make most of your mistakes. That first day of the hunting season. You want to get going. Your only thing is on your mind is finding a buck. You'll make careless mistakes, so double check you're safe. Double check everything. Don't make some foolish mistake that's going to ruin your whole fall. Okay, we're going to go next to the knowledge of your hunting area. Very important. You want to know this area like the back of your hand. And most of us that have been serious deer hunters for years probably been hunting in the same areas for years and years and years, so you know the area well. But you got to know where the deer are tending, where they're feeding, where the buck scrapes is, where the hookings are, bidding areas. So you want to know this area real well. Now, if you're hunting on private property, you got to have permission. Make sure you got permission to be on that private property and respect that man's land. If there's other hunters in that area, respect their rights to be there too. Don't go be putting up a deer stand 5 trees away from your buddy. It's only going to cause arguments, and that's not deer hunting. Deer hunting is a sport. There shouldn't be none of that involved in it. Respect the other hunters in that area. Give them some room too. And a lot of places you'll go to, you've probably never been there before, but it's just going to be, say, this looks like a good spot for deer. And if they're there, and there's nobody around to bother you, learn it. Take the time. Get in there before the season opens in early fall and look for some early hookings and stuff where the bucks have been cleaning the velvet off the horns. And spend a little time there. Pick out a spot that you think would be a great spot for a tree stand and learn that area. So when you go back deer hunting time, all of that is behind you. You know where you're going to be. You know the deer are there. You're set up. You're ready to go. All you got to do is wait for Mr. Trophy to come, and hopefully he's yours. Alright, this next little segment we're going to go through here is getting things to talk about here now that's going to make you a better deer hunter. And one of the subjects is, I know a lot of you hunters has looked at this, see this a lot. The maple leaves are down, the oak leaves are down, the acorns are down, and the deer are in the hardwood. But the big problem is, how do you get into that hardwood without sounding like walking in a cornflake factory? Well, we come up with an idea a few years ago of saving our old wool socks, home knitted ones or bottom ones when they got wore out. We'd take them into the camp, and cut the toe out with a pair of scissors and the heel out with a pair of scissors, and we'd haul them on over our boots. And what this would do when you're walking in them low bushes, you didn't get that whack against your boots from a small branch or a limb, like somebody snapping your boot with a elastic band. It was hardly any noise because it was hitting that sock. And walking in dry hardwood leaves, it was way quieter. And that way you could get into the hardwood. If the deer's in the hardwood eating acorns, you've got to be there. You've got to be there, and the name of the game of hunting open hardwood is slow. It's a slow process. Be patient, take your time, sneak along slow, let your eyes do the looking for the deer, and let your feet feel for where you're going. You know where you're going, you know you're going into the wind at all times, so let your feet feel where you're going, keep your eyes looking for the deer, because once you see a deer, it might not be a whole deer, it just might be a flick of a tail, a twitch of an ear. Then you've got to stop and really concentrate on finding them deer, either they be does and calves, but is there a buck there with them? And you got to try to pick that buck out before he picks you out. So I guess what I'm telling you is you got to be patient, you got to be rugged. If it's noisy and dry in the hardwood, you've got to do everything you can do to make it better for you and quieter for you to get in there and see these deer. Now, I left the camp one morning, had these socks over my boot, and I wanted to go to the place I called the old Frenchman's camp. The old camp had fell down, but the steps were still there. So I got there before daylight, and sitting on the steps looking out over a kind of a grassy swale with a little still water brook running through it. See many a nice buck, took many a nice bucket of that swale over the year. And I heard somebody walking behind me. And I looked around, and here come two hunters. Well, nothing I could do then. I don't think they even see me, because I stood up and said good morning and scared the living daylights out of them. So they come over and started talking, and I said, oh my God, I hope they don't notice my socks on the outside of my boots. But they did. I see them looking. By and by, one of them said to me, said, young fella, you know you got your socks on the outside of your boots? So I kind of looked down, kind of in a way that I didn't have a clue what they was talking about, and I went, huh, guess I must have been in a hurry this morning, put my boots on first, and that's all I said. But I think they got quite a tickle out of that when they see me with my socks, big pair of wool socks hauled on over my boots, but that wasn't the purpose I had them there for. I was going to leave there and go into the hardwood, and I wanted them socks on my boots so I could sneak along when I had good legs under me, and I could stalk a deer. I could go, because I knew the deer were moving, and I was in there sneaking along too. After a while, me and Mr. Buck was going to come face to face. It had to happen. I was playing the wind. I was doing everything I could do, keeping myself covered. I was acting like a buck. To see bucks, you got to live and act like a buck. You don't walk out in an open swamp and stick your hoof up and say, hey, here I am over here, shoot me. It ain't gonna happen. Them bucks keep themselves covered. They know what they do, and they never got that rack of horns by being stupid. They keep their butt covered at all times. The only thing that lets their guard down is a doe in heat. They will make foolish mistakes when the rut is going full swing, and that's when you got to take advantage of that situation. You got to be there, and you got to be ready, and you got to have all the equipment, the camouflage. Even if it means putting socks over your boots to make you quieter, this stuff has got to be done. Because if you want one of these big boys, it ain't going to be give to you. You got to go out and you got to hunt him, then you got to shoot and kill him. Okay, next thing we're going to talk about is what we call in this area road hunting. Now, there's a lot of people around here that not able to go back to a deer hunting camp for the fall. They've either got jobs or whatever and things to do around home, or maybe ain't got the health to get there. And it's a good effective way to get a deer in the fall. You get a chance to whip down an hour or so in the morning to a spot you found and got a tree stand out or whatever you do, and back again in the evening, maybe get an hour in before dark. It's just a matter of time. You put in your time, and there's been some nice bucks killed that way. And a lot of people even take an ATV from probably back of their own property and go back, have some trails cut, find a spot where there's a deer or two tending, and a lot of them do come out with their old big bucks every year. So it ain't all just about going back to a deer hunting camp. There's so many other different ways that you can get a nice deer. But the name of the game is you gotta be out there. Regardless if it's hunting from a camp, a couple hours a day, when you got a chance, going along the road in your car and stopping to a spot or on an ATV or whatever. But you gotta get out there to see them, and you gotta be there to kill them. Okay, this next subject I'm going to be talking about is the backwoods hunting camp. Now, I started my career 43 years ago going in with a bunch of friends of mine to a backwoods camp. So that's the only style of hunting I have ever done. I've never hunted what I call road hunting. I've never hunted over bait piles. I'm strictly a backwoods hunter. And the reason I love that so much is the camaraderie you have with your hunting buddies in these camps. People you probably don't get to see that much all summer. A lot of your friends are working and things, but when you get back there and the deer hunting yarns start and the whole thing, it's a real, makes for a real lovely trip now. But to get this already, you got to do some preparations in early fall. You've got to have plenty firewood. You've got to have plenty supplies in your camp in case of, so I see some falls you have an early winter and you could get snowed in for quite a while before you can get out of these places. So you got to be prepared for plenty of firewood, supplies in your camp, fresh water, everything you need in case you were in there a few days longer than you think you're going to be because of a bad snowstorm. But the beauty for me of backwoods camp hunting is the peace and the quiet, knowing there's no other hunters in the area. You built that camp there for a reason, to get away from that. And you're back there in the crisp, fresh air. It ain't about killing the deer. It's about the love and the passion you have for the hunting. The deer is just a bonus if you're lucky enough to get one. It's about the camp, the good food, the camaraderie with your hunting buddies, the peace, the quiet. And to me, that is what I really enjoy, and I know anybody that's been back in them places like I have over the years knows what I'm talking about. It's different things for different deer hunters. A lot of people can't go back there because of the obligations, but for me, being a lobster fisherman for 43 years, I usually had the month of November to myself that I could stay in the woods for 4 weeks if I wanted to. And that is what I enjoyed, being way back, way beyond the other hunters, and knew I was in the woods, just me and the deer. So that's the beauty of getting in the backwoods to a nice hunting camp. Alright, this next subject I'm going to talk about is very important. It's the safety aspects of using an ATV or a canoe to get to your hunting camp. And I see it, and I know everybody sees it. There's been a lot of serious accidents and a lot of deaths on these ATVs by, well, a lot of it's probably by carelessness or whatever, but it happens. And what you got to remember, when you use an ATV to get back to your hunting camp, first thing you're going to need is a good secure gun case for your hunting rifle. You probably just spent a half a box of bullets in one afternoon to the rifle range getting that gun lined up for the hunt. Now the last thing you want to do is beat that scope to pieces trying to get to your camp, and you got to line your rifle over again. When you get there, it's probably shooting 10 foot high. So first thing, get a good, they have these cases out that bolt to your ATV. You put your rifle in them, they're solid in there. There's no movement. Then you haven't got to deal with your gun getting beat to pieces getting to the camp. And when you use these all-terrain vehicles going to your camp, you want to know or make sure you've got a small air compressor that you can plug right into your ATVs. There's a little outlet there you can plug in case your tire goes down. You want spare patching stuff in case you poke a hole in your ATV tire. You want wrenches and stuff to take and change a tire if you have to. But that has got to get you to that camp. So if you're going to run into problems, you've got to have that equipment with you to ensure that you're going to get to that camp today, not in the middle of the night. Got to go back out and get somebody to come in and help you. Have that stuff with you and be prepared at all times when using these ATVs, because they're not a toy. They're a very, very dangerous little vehicle, and you got to be very careful when using them. Now, if you're going to use a canoe, same thing applies there. I traveled with the guys I hunted with for years. The only way we could get back to those backwood camps then was by canoe. First time I stepped in one, I said, can't go 10 feet, be grounded. But once you know how to handle a canoe, paddle a canoe, and be very, very patient in a canoe, don't get nervous and not worked up, nothing to it. But you got to know what you're sitting in, a canoe. The two people in that canoe have got to work together at all times, spare paddles, the whole deal. And I see us load them canoes down with just the top of the ribbon sticking out. We never had no problems because we knew what we was doing. The guy in the front of the canoe set the pace. The job for the man in the back of the canoe was to keep up that pace with the guy in the front and steer. When you come to a run, the guy in the bow bent down so the guy in the stern could see out over him so he could steer. He didn't need you for anything. The canoe was going plenty fast going down these little runs. So you got down so he could see out over you so he could steer that canoe down for that run. Not a problem whatsoever. Beautiful way to travel rivers and little brooks and stuff, and beautiful way to hunt out of a canoe. But again, safety. Number one rule. Know what you got under you. It's not a 40-foot lobster boat, it's a canoe. And know how to use it. Now again on the safety part of things here. Location and safety of a tree stand. I know a lot of guys look around the fall and they find a spot that's all tore up with buck signs, say, man, I got to get a tree stand in here. Well, that is where you really got to take your time and watch what you're doing. You get in that area, just don't rig up a tree in a hurry, say I got to get this done. Pick out a good, healthy tree, nice big limbs on it. If there's any limbs that are small or look dry or rotten, saw them off and replace them with these screw-in hooks you can get today, or big 12, 16-inch spikes, anything. But make sure that when you go up the limbs of that tree, that the only limbs you're using are big, strong, healthy limbs. And when you get up and put your stand, if it's just a couple boards or one of these stands that you buy, make sure you've got on a safety approved harness. So if something happens, which it does all the time, you are not going to fall. Now for an example, my hunting friend Terry in 2000, sitting up his deer tree on a branch, no board, thought everything was great. About that time, crack, the branch breaks off. He falls 30 feet, breaks his neck on impact. I find him that evening barely alive. Paramedics and a helicopter get there and they lift him to Halifax, and he lives. He survived that, and he got to get back home with his wife and young daughter for 10 years. And he passed away in 2010 from complications of being in a wheelchair that many years and his heart failure. But That's just how quick it can happen. Your loved ones is looking for you to come home from this hunting trip. Not to drive to Halifax to find you laying in the bed with your neck broke. So be careful. When you're putting up a tree stand, take your time, don't be in a hurry. If you gotta move 50, 60 yards from the deer signs, no big deal. At least you know you're safe. You're in a tree, you're in a good tree, you're safe. He'll still come by. You'll get a glimpse of him. But at least you know you're safe and your family knows you're safe. So be careful and make your choices wisely. Okay, next subject. Scents, cover scents I guess they're called, and deer calls. Well, there's a lot of different cover scents out there on the market. Since I started hunting, the only scent we had was on our clothes when we left the camp. Most of that was smoke and food odors, but we killed deer. But there is things out there now to make it a little easier for you. If you believe in these cover scents, there's a product out, I've used it some myself, called 99.9%. It's called Scent Killer. You spray this on the bottom of your boots, on your hunting clothes, and let it dry. They say it works for days. And maybe it does. But if it gives you a little advantage and a buck don't pick up your scent, use it. If you believe in it, use it. That's all I can tell you on this cover scent part of it. It's a great little product. And deer calls. There's about 3 different kinds of deer calls that you should have with you at all times. You can get these multi-purpose grunt calls. They go any different pitch that you want to hear. Low, to deep grunts, to snort wheeze, or anything you want. Have it with you at all times. You never know when you're going to bring a buck out with it. Now the doe bleeps, you probably see them. They're a little can, they're like a giant pepper shaker. You put your finger over the hole in the bottom of it, turn it upside down. When you turn it back, it goes man. That's supposed to imitate the sound of a doe in heat. She's calling for a buck. Some people swear by it. And I know one of my hunting partners in the camp, he uses his quite often. But the grunt call, now I know hunters, if they was halfway to the camp and finally noticed they forgot the grunt call, they would go back home and get it because they wouldn't go in the woods without it. Some areas is deadly. Some areas you wouldn't call a deer with them if you blowed on it till you blow the reed right out of it. It's according to what works where you're hunting. Now a grunt, to me, what I see of bucks grunting, a lot of times it's to stop the doe ahead of them that they're trailing on her scent trail. She's in heat. He will grunt to stop her so he can catch up to her. I see it so many times. And don't think just because you hear this big coming that it's a big buck, because it's not going to happen that way. I've been laying there and I've heard him coming, grunting. I said, it's got to be a bull moose. And my heart was a pounding. The safe was off and I was all ready to go. Out comes the spike horn. I said, well, that couldn't have been the deer that was doing that. Walks along by me. Well, I said, I'll be darned. A little spike horn sounded like a bull moose. And I've been laying there, and when I could hear, good, you'd hear a little, I said, what was that, a tree limb? Well, it sounded like a tree limb squeaking. And you look, and here comes the damnedest rack of horns you ever see in your life coming. Squeaking like a mouse. So, just because it sounds big, and it got that big, deep grunt to it, don't get in your mind for a second that it's a monster buck, because there's no two bucks grunts is the same. When you're grunting, don't grunt the same grunt all the time. Change it up. Low pitch, medium pitch, deep, high. Now, there's no two bucks sounds the same. Never did, and there probably never will. But the grunting, myself, believe that when a buck is grunting, he's doing it for a reason. He's grunting, he's on the doe trail, he's after her, he's grunting to stop that doe. And a lot of times a fellow will be laying there and a deer will come walking by on a fast pace. You want to stop him to get a good standing shot, you grunt to him. when you be all ready, safe off, ready to go, and you blow on that grunt call and go, that buck will just stop and look right in at that sound where you got him where you want him. Broadside on, stop looking at you, the scope is on him, squeeze the trigger. That's all there is to it. It's a great method of stopping a buck on a fast pace chasing a doe, is a grunt call. Now, there's other things we use the rattling horns. People say, you can't rattle in a deer. Don't kid yourself. In the pre-rut, diddly. But don't never do it alone. You've got to have a buddy to help you with this. Because the guy concentrating on the rattling and doing a little grunting at the same time, he can't be looking for deer. He's concentrating on the rattling, driving them down into the ground, into the bushes, and clicking them together and blowing his grunt call. The guy with the rifle is looking for the buck at all times. You got to position yourself. That buck will come. Soon as you touch them horns together, he's coming straight at you if he's in hearing distance. But what he's going to want to do is get down around you to try to smell what you are. Are you two deer fighting? Are you a couple of hunters trying to trick me into thinking it's two deer fighting? So you got to get yourself positioned so he can't get down. You got to have your back. What I'm saying is against open country. So he can't get downwind of you. You got to play the wind on this one. It's probably only 2 or 3 mornings for the fall that you'll catch this perfect chance in the pre-rut, early rut, to get out there and rattle. The guy with the rifle, his head is going just like a radar all the time, trying to get a glimpse of this buck coming, trying to get downwind of you. And you catch him just right and he steps out looking to see what all this commotion is. He's the one, you probably be rattling and doing your thing, and next thing you know, it because they bang right here in your ear hole and scare the living daylights right out of you. But he ain't going to tell you here comes one. He's going to concentrate on what his job is. He's the shooter in this situation, and probably the next time you do it, let him do the rattling and you take the gun, so maybe you get a turn. But need 2 men, play the wind, right time of the year, and do it right. Guarantee you, when you touch them horns together, the buck is coming. Next subject is the use of these trail cameras. As far as I'm concerned, they're one of the best little products to come on the market for deer hunters in years, and I'm going to tell you why. The first thing it does for you, you set one of these cameras up on a deer's trail or over a nice digging or diggings or where you know pretty well there's a buck in that area. And you go back and get your chip out and take it back to the camp or whatever, or do it right there by your camera as far as that goes. A lot of guys do. And there he is. This big monster buck in your trail camera. Now I don't know about you, but to me, there's nothing that excites me anymore than knowing I have got a big buck on my trail camera in the area I'm hunting in, and I see it all the time. When I go to the hockey games, the young guys come running, gee, Smoke, look what I got on my camera. Big as rack, all excited, boy, it'll get your blood to pumping. Then another great thing about these cameras, also on the camera they got a couple spike horns, maybe a 4 or 5 pointer. They lost all interest in them deer. When they see that big rack, they're going to let them little fellas go. Even though they don't see that big buck again for the fall, they're going to be there laying for him if the wind's right. And they're going to let the spike horns and the 4 pointers go, and that gives them another year to grow a little bigger, with a little bigger rack and a little bigger deer, and that's what we need in our deer hunting now. We got to start letting some of our smaller bucks grow up. You can't kill all the little ones and expect to have trophy ones. So these cameras are a great little product. It's letting a lot of the smaller deer get a chance to grow up to be trophy deer. Great product. You gotta have one if you're going deer hunting. It'll get the old heart to pumping, I'll tell you right now. I wouldn't go in the woods without one. And I'll give you an example on a story a young fella come told me one time. He said, man, Smoke, I got 2 big 8 pointers coming to my bait pile. Got them on the trail camera. Beautiful bucks. Daylight pictures, night pictures, morning pictures, afternoon pictures. So, a few days after the season opened, I see this guy again, and I said, you get a whack at either one of them big 8-pointers. Man, he said, I went there the first day of the season. Sit there all day, never see one, been back there every day ever since. Well, I said, well, how was the wind first morning of the season for you? Well, it was kind of blowing from me down across my big pile, down into the bunch. I said, I'll let you in on a little cigarette buy. You ain't gonna see them bucks again for the fall, because the first thing you done wrong, you wanted to get a whack at one of them 2 bucks so bad, you forgot what I've been preaching to you. You gotta play the wind. You should have waited for the wind to come right before you went anywhere nigh that bait pile. You'd have seen one of them 2 bucks. Now they know you're there. They've winded you. The chances of you seeing them 2 bucks this fall or any fall again is none. And that's just what he see him again was never. So, just because you got him on the camera, just because he's coming all these hours of the day and evening, don't play the wind right and he gets a whiff of you. He never got that rack of horns by being stupid. He knows you're in the area. There's other bait piles he can go to. He's not going to come to that one no more. Get him on your camera. Know he's there. Put the wind in your favor. Let him come to you. Then he's yours. Okay, next we're going to take a little session here on your bow hunters. I know I haven't talked much about the great sport of bow hunting, because I've never shot one in my life. Probably had the arrow sticking right fan the top of my foot, but I know what you have to do to be a good bow hunter, and what shows I've watched on it, it is patience, know how to shoot your bow, and absolutely you got to make sure you got that deer within your range that you're comfortable with shooting that animal with your bow. He's got to be inside of that 40, 30 yards, whatever you want him, standing in the right position, so you get a good clean kill shot right into his lungs or heart. And anybody that's done any serious bow hunting, I know they know what I'm talking about. But that's what you got to do when you're bow hunting. It's not out there 300 yards with a high-powered rifle. You've got to set up your tree stand. Everything has got to be completely changed from rifle hunting. He's got to be closer. He's got to be standing right. You've got to make a perfect shot to kill this animal with a bow. And they do lovely jobs with the bows they got now. Plenty of power. But what I'm trying to say, if you're going to use a bow, know your limits. Know how to shoot it, and kill the deer, not to cripple the deer. There's plenty of crippled with rifles too all the time, but you've got to have that animal in that spot that you know, I got you. You'll say to yourself, I got you now, boy, right here. Then you put that arrow right down in bed behind that forward shoulder, and you know in your heart that that buck is yours from that minute on. He might run, but he's not going to go far. So, for all you bow hunters out there, good luck. Keep killing them. Put it right to them. Okay, next I'm going to talk to you about what I call the life from the start to the finish of a buck. We'll take Stumpy here for example. Now his mother probably, the doe, probably had him in late May, according to when she got bred, or the middle of June. Now when that little buck was born, he wouldn't even hardly stand. For the first 2 weeks of his life, he has no scent whatsoever. None. He learns who his mother is by her calls and bleats and whatever she does. He recognizes that, and if she'll make him lay down in a spot, he won't move. He'll lay there till he's starved to death. He won't move. And she'll go off and feed to build up her milk supplies. And when she comes back to feed that little buck, she'll make a little squeaking noise or a blat like a sheep. And he knows that's his mother. When she gets to so close, he'll jump up and go run into her and put the milk right to him. That gives him that start. That first 2 weeks with no scent. If he lays there and don't move, the predator's not going to smell him. The only way they're going to get him, if they get so close to him, he gets nervous and don't hold his ground by laying still and gets up and run. It's all over for that little buck. But if he don't do that, that predator pretty well got to step on that little deer before they get him. And I know a lot of them die that way, because in the coyotes we've killed over the years, you see the little hooves and stuff that they can't digest in their stomach, still in the stomach of these coyotes. So a lot now are losing their lives because of the plentiness of coyotes in our area. But if that little buck makes it through that stage and gets strong and starts chasing his mother around and gets his strength and starts feeding on his own, that next fall he's going to be a little spike horn. And if he's got the generics in him, like Stumpy, probably, you know, a healthy looking spike horn, and he survives that fall and winter, we don't have a bad winter or nothing happens to him, the next year he probably might bump it up to a big 4 or maybe even a 6-pointer with the looks of a, you know, a handsome young buck. He's got everything going for him. He's got the generics. Then if he survives through that winter, there's a lot of things here that can end this deer's life at any time. But if he does survive, the next thing you know, within 4 years, there he is. A 4-year-old, mature, beautiful animal, ready to start breeding with does. And that is when things start coming downhill for him. Because he'll chase these does till the end of the rut. And from a 214-pound animal, which Stumpy was when I shot him, he will run himself down and probably lose anywhere from 40 to 50 pounds within a month. Won't even stop to eat. Just straight go chasing does. Then, if winter comes in quick and cold and snow, he's in big trouble. He's got to get his strength built back up for that miserable winter ahead of him. And if he's run down so low, which this buck would probably survive it, right? Because he's a young buck. Get his strength back. But you put 3 or 4 more years on him, and he's starting to go the other way, and he's getting older and weaker, and he gets run down just so bad. A lot of them don't make it if the winter shuts on them early. They just can't get back. They're so weak. They're run down so low. They can't get at the feed. The snow is too deep. And I imagine they end up being a supper for coyotes because they just can't. And that's the end of him. That's it. So if you're lucky, you get him when he's this age. Beautiful, prime, mature, young buck. Perfect buck you want for breeding your does. The generics is there, everything is there. And that is the time, if you're lucky enough to get one, that's the time to get him. But the life of a deer, from the time he's born till the time he's either shot or his life ends in the woods, boy, is a hard old battle for him. It always don't work out, but there's some that does make it, and I guess apparently Stumpy was one of them. He made it to be, anyway, to what he is right there, a mature buck. Now what was going to happen to him after that? Well, that was for Mother Nature to decide, I guess, but he hasn't got to worry about it anymore. He's on the wall, so, and I enjoy having him there. So, but anyway, that's a little story that I think you should know about the life of a deer. It ain't all roses. There's a lot of battles they got to fight and win, and a lot of them don't make it, but some do, and a good thing to do, because we wouldn't have no deer hunting. So that will be the end of this little session, I guess. Okay, the next subject I'm going to be talking on here is very important. He's going to let you know what you're hunting here. The next time you get a nice buck down, before you field dress him, just take a minute and look at that beautiful animal and come to realize that this animal is built to survive. He's got everything he needs. His eyesight. He can see you a mile away and you would never even know you was there. You wouldn't have an idea. He could hear a mouse squeak a mile away if he wanted to zone in on it. With them ears, they're built just like satellite dishes. There's nothing that they don't hear. They got to have that to survive. The scent of smell. I don't know how far. I think he smells you when you leave the house in the morning if he wanted to. So don't kid yourself. They know you're there. It's up to you to be a little foxy and try try to cut down on some of this, like I said, by not making yourself so visible in the woods that he's going to see you. Be quiet enough so you stand a chance that he don't hear you. And if you want to use the cover scents and stuff, that'll help you keep him from smelling you. But one thing I have noticed about scents, when laying in a tree stand, if you can get to your tree stand and get up in it, especially in the mornings, you notice how the frost and the mist rises out of the ground as the sun comes up. That's to your advantage in the morning. Because also you're up there 15, 18 foot or 20 foot in that tree stand. Your scent also is rising up with the morning heat. He ain't going to smell you because everything is getting up above. And the deer rarely looks up because they have no threat from above. And so that's to your advantage. In the evenings now, things start coming down a bit because as darkness comes on, things start settling again, and your scent will kind of be going down towards the ground more. And another part about these things that deer's got for them so they can survive. The next time you get one down, I want you to take a minute and go to one of his front feet, spread his hooves apart in that light hair, and look up inside there and see what you're going to be looking at. And I'll tell you what you're going to be looking at. You're going to be looking at a little round yellow pad, kind of leathery looking, all full of little holes. And I know a good many of you out there has had a deer staring you down, stomping its front feet in the ground, and you're saying, why the devil is that deer stomping his front feet? Well, that is why he's stomping his front feet. You're dealing with something that ain't only got 2 ears, they got 4 ears. They got an ear in each front foot. And that stomping, that vibration, will go through the ground and let every other deer that's close in that area know there's danger in the area. So if you're going through the woods, thumping the heel of your boot in the rocks and in the stump roots and every log and bush and think you're being quiet, I got news for you. You just let every deer within 300 yards know that you're there. Because you're dealing with a very smart animal here. He ain't stomping that foot because he's scared of you. He's stomping that foot because he's going to let the other deer in the area know that you're there. You look the next time and see what I'm telling you. You look up inside that front hoof, spread it apart and have a look and see what you see. You're going to see another set of ears that you didn't even know this animal had. So we ain't just playing with some dumb creature here. This boy is built to survive. He wants to survive, and you got to be just a little smarter than he is to get him, and a lot of us ain't. Okay, next I'm going to talk about is deer communication. Different sounds they make, from calling a calf or a buck, calling a doe or getting aggressive with another buck, or a doe in heat bleating for a buck to come to her. You'll hear these sounds. Now when the coyotes first come into our area, we was hearing deer blowing. As soon as you heard a coyote howl, it would be over in this edge of the big woods. Then it'd be way over here. Then it'd be way off in the distance. You know, I'm talking probably 1/4 mile radius around me, and I said, what are the deer doing? They all heard them coyotes howling, getting ready to bunch up to go on a hunting pack. And those deer were letting each other know where they was at that time, that they all heard these coyotes. And we noticed it more and more and more, and it made the deer more nervouser. We were seeing less deer. They got nervous. They didn't want to come out like we were seeing them any time of the day. But that's some of the sounds you'll hear. And you'll hear a deer will blow when she smells you, or a buck smells you, and runs from you. They'll and off they go, the tail lapped up or going and bouncing, and all you'll see is the east end of a westbound deer. That's letting you know that that deer has scented you. She's running from you, or he's running from you. But the other calls you'll hear, if you're in the woods a lot like I've been over the years, is the spring of the year. Sometimes you'll see a doe calling to its calf. I see them out in these little meadows and stuff when the grass turns green in the early spring. And like any little youngster, the calf will get away from its mother a little bit. And she'll look back, and there he is, probably 40, 50 yards the other side of her. Well, she'll make a little meh sound like that. And that little calf recognizes his mother's voice. He'll look over and it isn't very loud. You got to have good ears to hear that, but it's just a little meh, just a little squeaky kind of a sound, just like a baby sheep, probably a little lamb would make. And that's letting his mother know, well, I see you, I know where you are, and they'll communicate that way. Now when fall comes, you're going to hear some different sounds. Mostly in the bucks, there's two major ones, like I described to you before about the grunt calls you'll hear. Just because it sounds loud don't mean it's a big buck. But these bucks will make that sound like that to let a doe know he's on a trail. Then you'll get two bucks eyeing each other up that might turn into a major scrap to figure out who's got the dominance in that area. You'll hear that. They call it a snort wheeze. Well, that's just letting one of the bucks letting the other buck know you ain't going to put up with this no more. You're going to have it out right here, and we're going to have it out right here now. And it's a lot of guys, I've never used one myself, but a lot of guys use these snort wheeze. It'll bring an aggressive buck in, thinking there's another buck in the area that wants to fight for him. You know, fight for his does. And myself, I've never heard it really that much in the wild, but I guess it does happen a lot, this snort wheezing. Then again in the late fall, when the rut is in full tilt, I'll see single does walking along, and be ready, because I said, well, there's going to be a buck right behind her. That doe's in heat, there's going to be a buck come behind her somewhere here, hopefully before it gets dark or whatever. And she'll go along, and next thing you know, she'll just stop, lift the head up and go, meh. Well, I said, what's she doing? And it took me the longest while to figure out there was no buck in that area, probably right there where she was. She's in full estrus, probably going to only be in there for 2 days, 3 days, and she's going to go out until the next time. She's calling for a buck to come and breed her. Simple as that. And it's a noise that these bleat calls, I call them, doe in heat bleat calls, imitate to the T. It's a long, dragged out bleat. And if there's a buck anywhere in the area with the ears they got, I'm sure they're going to hear it. And if I was a buck in the woods and heard a doe doing that to me, I'd be coming with trees and everything going right out over top of my back just to get there. So when you hear that sound, you want to get ready. It might be a buck or it might be me. Okay, now we're going to go into big buck behavior, and when it comes to the rut and rest of the year, really, is a lot of times you're probably in the woods in the early summer or late to early fall, August to September. And I know one time me and one of my hunting buddies, Walton Smith, was down getting some firewood cut for the fall hunt. We went for a walk one morning early, and you know, I mean, it was getting around towards the first week of September. We was walking along this meadow and swale, and all of a sudden Walton stops and Freddie looked there. And there they was. 5 mature bucks. All big-bodied animals. Horns, some had some velvet starting to come off. Big main beam racks, beautiful looking bucks. The works of them was all from 8 to 10 pointers, all together. There they was, just like cattle you see in a farmer's field, feeding around in this meadow out next to this brook, and well, they figured it out of sight, and we just stood there amazed by it. But that will change within a month. When you start getting into late October, when things start changing, the weather gets cooler, they rub that velvet off the horns, you ain't going to see those 5 bucks together anymore. They'll start getting out on their own, getting down the hooking lines and the scrape lines and stuff out. And when they do meet each other again, it ain't on a friendly basis. They're going to square off and going to find out who the dominant buck is in this area. because they banned, the whole 5 of them was in that same area all summer. And everybody thinks 2 big bucks squaring off into a fighting match. Well, if you've never seen it, I've never seen it, but I've seen where they have banned fighting, ground all tore up, looked like somebody been there with a tiller, hair, blood. I even found the end of one of the points off of one of the buck's horns. I don't know, they got them locked together and broke one off. But it's not so much as driving the horns into each other as it is a shoving match. And that's why they'll hook in the late fall. They'll hook big trees, little trees. They're going to build them neck muscles up. And them neck muscles are the purpose for fighting. Them 2 big bucks are going to rack them horns together, and they're going to start pushing each other. One will push one way and one will push the other way. And the one that's the strongest is going to end up pushing the weaker one down. And he's going to get to his feet and he's going to take off the other way, and that bigger buck's going to take on to him and he's going to drive him out of there. Probably ain't going to have to worry about him that fall, where they was the best of friends all summer. Now I imagine a good many of us growing up in our life done the same thing when it come to a girlfriend. Well, you probably had to fight some guys off just to get to talk to her, but same basic idea. He's fighting for dominance in that area, and Mother Nature has made it that way. So the dominant buck mates with the doe, the bloodline continues on. She has strong, healthy calves, only mating with dominant bucks, and a lot of does want lesser buck mate with her. I've seen spikhorns sneaking around with dominant bucks. Good many times I've killed a big buck with a doe. Went over there, the doe has run off. There lays my buck. Something catches my eye and I look standing there, and there stands the spikhorn. Well, why was he there? I'll tell you why. Sometimes when these 2 big boys are, and that spikhorn standing there, sees these other 2 bucks to one side of the doe, having it out over the dominance over that doe in heat. He gets things just right. He's going to sneak out there and he's going to try to breed that doe. Now what will happen, majority of the times, as he tries, the doe ain't going to have nothing to do with him, because nature is built into that doe that she knows she should be mating with the dominant buck to carry the bloodline on, and she'll just slide right out from underneath him and take. Then about that time the old big dominant buck's going to see that spikhorn, see what he's up to, and he's going to take on to him and drive him to one side. So, but that's what will happen. Sometimes you keep watching, I bet many of you see it. Drop a big buck, doe runs off, you go over there to see what kind of a buck you got, and you look and there stands a spikhorn. And you'll say to yourself, well, what the devil's that little spikhorn chasing that big buck around for? You get his butt kicked, all he's going to get. But he ain't worried about getting his butt kicked. He's worried about getting a chance at that doe. So even the little bucks, they know what's going on, the rut. Now I'm going to talk about deer and animals in Pacific, I guess, adapting to their surroundings. You take these 2 mounts here, the 8-pointer. Look how light his horns is. How light of the hair and stuff is on his body. Now that buck was taken in an area that was open, grassy meadows, that pretty brown meadow grass you see in the late fall, cranberry bogs mostly. And he was probably born and raised in that area and grew up to be the nice buck he is there. And so he would blend into that area. It'd be a little job to see him at times out in that meadowgrass because he's the same color. Now the 11-pointer here, Stumpy, where he ended up and where I got him was out in that same type area as I just described to you as the 8-pointer was in, but he didn't come from there. This buck was born and raised either in a big woods pine or a hemlock ridge that probably stretched for miles, or down in some black spruce thicket. So that's why he's got the darker face, a lot of dark hair running through his neck and his body, so he would blend in. Look how dark colored chocolatey brown horns. He was adapting to survive in the area he raised up in, where he grew up, being a darker phased deer, but he ended up out on the stump ridge around these big meadows. The only reason he was there was to chase the does around that was in heat, but that's not where he was born and raised. That's where he ended up, and that's where his life ended out there. But there's a deer will adapt. Same thing when we first started hunting down where we hunt now. When they drained the lake back, it was all muck. You'd walk along, the next thing you know, you'd go right to your crotch in muck. And we noticed the deer we was killing had these great big humongous hoofs on them like caribou, hair and all, and we couldn't figure out what it was. Well, those deer had adapted to trying to walk up on that muck without getting bogged down every other step. Now, over the last 30 years in that area, the muck is turned to hard ground. It's turned to grassy meadows, young pines starting to grow in it, and I've noticed the last 10 years, the bucks' feet are getting smaller again in that area because they don't need those great big wide snowshoe shaped pads on the feet to carry them over mucky conditions. It's hardened up now, so animals adapt to their surroundings. Or no matter where they are, they will adapt to the area they're in, either by color or something to do with them that will blend them in and make it easier for them to survive in that area. Now I want to talk a bit on what I call natural predators that deer have. Now deer will treat us as a predator. If they smell us or see us, they're going to run from us because they see us as a threat. Even though we're not a natural predator, to them we are danger. There's so many things out there now that wasn't there even a few years ago, but they've always had natural predators around them. But you've got more abundance of coyotes, and I've noticed the last few years the bears. The bear population is getting so thick, especially in the area that I hunt in, it's unreal. They're numerous, they're everywhere now. They're a great threat to newborn calves in the spring of the year laying around in these little grassy meadows, laying there waiting for the mother to come back to feed them. We're not seeing no calves like we used to. Rarely. And I talked to guys a good many times in the fall. Hundreds of pictures of does on the trail cameras. Not a calf. So this is getting to be a problem. Where is our next generation of buck we're going to be coming from here? If these natural predators, which never was a big threat to deer, but always a threat, always there, and them always looking for them, they're getting to be more and more and more every year. Way too many bear. We don't have a spring bear season no more to thin some of these bear out. They took that away from us. And some of these predators, I know a lot of the trappers and the coyote hunters are doing the best they can. But you know yourself, you're never going to kill the coyote population off. The more you kill, the more they breed if the feed's there. But they am getting to be something that's really going to put a big impact on a deer herd, especially if our bad winters come back. We've had good winters in southwest Nova Scotia for the last few years. Hardly see enough snow to make a snowman anymore. Deer are surviving more, but if you throw back in them bad winters, 2 or 3 real bad winters with a lot of snow, and the predators that's going to be out in the winter, not the bears because he's hibernating, but the coyotes, them does are going to have calves in their belly. And when late winter comes on, they're really getting swelled out with the calf in the stomach. And if a coyote forces that doe through deep snow in a long period of running, that's going to take a big impact on her having a miscarriage and dropping that calf before it's time for it to be born, because it's just too much for her to run through deep snow every jump she makes. She just can't do it. It's too much for them. So we got to take into consideration about pressuring our natural resources department and stuff to give us a little more time to thin out some of these bears, a spring bear hunt and an extra bear hunt in the fall or something, to thin some of these predators out, make it a little easier on the deer herd. They got enough to put up with. Now, wind and weather. I know I've talked a lot about putting the wind in your favor when it comes to deer hunting. Always be hunting into the wind and use the wind in your favor for your favorite tree stand. But what I'm going to be talking about here is a little different situation. Get yourself a good weather radio. Have it with you in your camp or your tent, whatever you're doing at all times. And you know yourself, a lot of times in the fall you'll have a couple days of northwest wind, cool, dry weather. Then all of a sudden you'll snap your weather radio on, given a big southeaster coming. Rain for a day, and then going out to the southern, to the southwest, back into the northwest. Deer hunter's dream coming true right there. Them deer don't need no weather radio to tell them what's coming. It's built right into them. They know there's a weather front coming by just in a drop of pressure. And they're going to be more active that night when that wind drops off from the northwest late that afternoon, and they know a bunch of foul weather and rain and wind. Deer don't like to move when it's blowing hard. They lose the #1 scent is their hearing. They hate to move. They'll stand around in cover. But if you got a front coming in with the rut on, you want to be ready, because you got a short window here to work in. That evening or the next morning before this front shows up, those deer are going to be out feeding. They're going to be feeding hard because they're going to be bedded down, chewing the cud for a while until this weather breaks again. So you got to take advantage of those chances when they come up. And the only way to do it, you got to have a good radio with you. And I know my hunting buddies tell me all the time, "Oh, Smoke, you can't be getting the weather again. You've listened to it 100 times today." I said, "Look, I want to know from 10 o'clock in the morning till he changes it at 3 o'clock what the weather's doing." To me, changing it from northwest 20 to westerly 20 in 3 hours means all to me. I got spots I can be in that northwester. And I got spots that I can be in that westerly. I want to know what the weather's doing at all times. So don't be scared, even if you get on your buddy's nerves. Listen to the weather, pay heed to the weather patterns. You'll kill more deer. Alright, the next subject we'll be going to here right now is the subject on conservation. Very, very important. We got to get every hunter and every deer hunter to come to some kind of agreement and get us all on the same page here, because if we don't, what is scaring me is what is going to be left out there for our sons and our grandsons and all the new hunters and ladies, whoever do this, coming along. And the first problem I'm going to tackle is the problem of deer baiting. Now, this has just come into play in this area for a few years now. I guess it's not even allowed in the United States. But and what's happening, and I know this and y'all know this, you're killing too many small bucks over bait piles. And I asked the hunters about this, and they'll say, "Well, I just may as well shoot that spike horn because it's only going to go to the next guy's bait pile and he's going to shoot it." And I said, "Well, no, not necessarily. If we're all on the same page and make a decision that we got to let these small bucks go to grow up, how are you going to have trophy bucks when you're killing the spike horns and 4-pointers to your bait piles? It just can't happen. You can't kill off all your kids and have adults. It ain't going to happen." And they say, "Man, good bucks is some shy, ain't they?" And I said, "Well, yeah, they're going to be for a long while. Because you can't kill them as spike horns and 4-pointers and have 12-pointers 3 or 4 years down the road. It ain't going to happen." Now, one thing I want to make clear here. Myself, I have never used bait. I've never laid over bait. I have never killed a deer over bait. I started my hunting career off in the backwoods, and that's where I'm going to finish it. I've made that decision, and I'm not going to change it. When it gets so I can't go in the backwoods anymore and hunt, I'll be done my hunting career. Handed the torch over to somebody else in the family, my grandsons and them. Now, bow hunters, you're not going to get off easy either. I know there's a lot of dedicated bow hunters out there that would be more than pleased to tag a buck if they're lucky enough to get one with a bow. But what goes on, you know it as well as I know it. Shoot a deer with your bow, either try to sneak it home or bone it out in the woods and get it home the best way you can so you can buy a hunting license to go kill one with a big rifle too. And I'm going to admit to you, see, as sure as I sit here, I'm just as guilty of this as the rest of us. Same thing with the rifle hunters. You kill a nice buck. Right in the first of the season, you'll say, my dear, well, I got the whole rest of the season, what am I going to do? Well, I tell you what we all do. We get a friend or somebody to come in and tag that buck for us, take it home, and you stay in the woods so you can kill another one. No, it's all right for us right now. But what I'm saying is what's going to be there next fall when you go back. And for the younger generation coming up, what's going to be left there for them? Nothing but bare woods. Deer, I thought we were supposed to be deer hunting here, not deer feeding. Deer don't have to be fed. They've been eating out in the woods for millions of years. If there was no feed for them, they'd all died off long ago. We don't have to feed them. They can eat anything they want. They know what they're eating, and they know what's in season and what isn't. They'll go around like us looking for blueberries in the fall. There's a special little treat comes right and gets just right, they're going to eat it. And that's the way deer live, and they're always going to live that way. But that's what's happening so far around here. This deer baiting, all I can see it doing is destroying the beautiful sport of deer hunting itself, because you're not hunting no more. You're crawling up a stand 25 yards off the woods and sitting to a bait pile. And I know there's a lot of hunters out there that hate it. They tell me they hate laying the bait, but where their cottages and hunting camps is, they're forced to do it. Because if they don't put bait out too, they're not going to see a deer for the fall. But that's not what they want to be doing. They'd rather be back the old way of hunting. And these things all combined together, in the wild, it's just going to, as far as I'm concerned, it's going to destroy the sport itself. We got to get back to the way it was. Conservation. Kill a nice deer. If you like deer meat, it don't make no difference. It's your take. You can kill what you want. If you make a decision you want to kill a small buck for good eating purposes, fine, I got no problem with that. But just to kill one because you say, well, if I let it go to the next guy's bait pile, he's only going to shoot it. To me, that's not a decision that you should be making without thinking a bit. If we're all on the same page, you say, well, yeah, I can let that buck go because I know my buddy down there, he told me the same thing. He wasn't shooting no more spike horns and four pointers over bait piles. He wanted to let them grow up to be bigger bucks. And if you're on that page, we're all on that same page, things will change. Our sons and our grandsons and the new upcoming hunters are going to have something to go in the woods to hunt for and give you something to think about. Like, you know, that's all I want to say about that part of it. Alright, now I'm going to try to summarize the topics that we've talked about in this video, and I'm going to start off with deer hunting in general. This is not about killing a deer in per se. It's about the love and the passion of hunting. The clean fresh air, the beautiful colors of the fall, the camp, the nice food, the partnership with your fellow hunters. The deer itself, if you're lucky enough to get one, is only a bonus. That comes along with it. But you've got to have that love and that passion in your heart before you even start in this sport. And the next subject will be hunting gear and preparation. Be very, very careful when it comes to selecting your hunting gear. Make sure all the clothing you buy is what you want. If it's camouflage, make sure it's the colors you want to blend in with the area you hunt in. And you know you got to have your hunter's orange with you, and that's your hat and your vest that you have to wear is law. And your compass and your waterproof matches and everything else you need to survive. If something happens in the woods, you got to have these things with you to spend the night in the woods. I've never had to do it yet, but I've talked to guys that have. And I don't care how many years you've been in the woods, it's a scary situation. And be prepared for anything, because you don't know. You could fall, break a leg, all by yourself, you don't know. No way of getting a hold of anybody. You're going to have to spend the night in the woods. People are going to be looking for you because they know you're supposed to be coming home. But you're going to be there until they come find you. And always let people know where you are hunting. Don't say I'm going to such and such a place for the day and change your mind on the way there and go somewhere else without letting one of your hunting partners or somebody know. Because if he thinks you're in this particular spot and you don't show up and they go there looking for you and don't find you, well, how are they going to know where you are? If you change your plans, let somebody know by talking with them on the walkie-talkie or your cell phone or whatever. But make sure people know where you are at all times. I don't care if you're young or old. Anything can happen at any time. And next subject, your hunting rifle and your bullets. Like I told you in this show, choose a rifle that is going to be for you, for the area you hunt in. And make sure it's what you want. You're going to invest a lot of money in this rifle. And it's got to be for you. You're the one that's going to use it. And you're the one that's hopefully going to get a trophy buck with it. Your bullets, find a grain of bullet that works the best. Get the ballistics on this rifle. See what grain of bullet works the best in this rifle. What shoots the flattest, the fastest, hits the hardest. Choose that bullet and stick with it for target practice and for deer hunting. Don't be changing grains, because you're going to see a big difference in the rise and fall of your bullets. Get out to your local rifle club, join it. Nothing any better than supporting a local rifle club. And practice, practice, practice makes perfect. Know where that rifle is shooting and be absolutely sure in your mind when you get a shot at a nice buck that you're going to put that bullet where it's supposed to be and make a good clean kill. And that's what it's all about. But you got to know your rifle. Safety, common sense when you're in the woods. That's something you got to be thinking about all the time when you're hunting. You got to have the right safety equipment with you. You got to watch what you're doing at all times, around tree stands, climbing trees. Make sure every move you make is what you think you're being as safe as you can be. There ain't no way of covering it all. But you got to have it in your mind at all times. And you make a foolish mistake, like my friend Terry did, it's going to cost you big time. So be safe. This, for your own personal and enjoyment. Your loved ones is looking for you to come home at the end of the day. They don't want to get no calls saying you fell out of a tree or done some foolish thing that you knew better, and there you are in a mess. So you got to keep that in mind, your safety of it all. Road hunters, another great way to take some nice bucks. Even though you can't get back in the backwoods like you like to, probably, because of your age or your other obligations. Put your time in. Find a spot that looks good, some good buck signs. Get there as much as you can. Put your time in, you're going to get one. Guaranteed. Tree stands. If you're going to invest money in a good tree stand, get the top of the line. And as soon as you pay for that stand, the next question you ask the salesperson, where's your safety harnesses? Make sure if you're going up in these tree climbing stands, they have these summit ones, what one of my hunting partners use, that you can go up a tree just like an inchworm. And that safety harness is on the tree from the time you leave the bottom of the tree till you get up as high as you want to go, and it's on you at all times. Something happens and you slip, you're safe. You ain't going to be any problems. That's one thing you've got to have, is a good solid safety harness. Camp hunters. A lot of us in our younger years built these camps way back in the beyond the beaten trail, and that's where we wanted to be. That's how we wanted to start our hunting careers, and that's where I'm going to finish mine. If that's what you love and that's what you've done with your father and your grandfather over the years, don't change it. Don't change it. You stay in your backwoods and you do your thing, because that is what I call backwoods hunting. him away from the road. You don't hear nothing. Here and there plane going overhead. That's it. No cars, no nothing. It's a beautiful spot to be, and that's where I want to be. Trail cameras, like I said, one of the best little devices to come out in a lot of years. You're seeing what's around your tree stand, or where you find some nice buck signs and set it up. You know he's there. There he is in your camera. There's nice, big, healthy, mature buck. And he might have a spike horn or a 4-point or 2 sniffing around there with him. That's the choice now that you can make. I ain't shooting that spike horn or that little 4-point. I'm a laying for that old big fella. That's conservation in a package right there. You're not going to waste your tag. I shouldn't say waste it on a spike horn or a 4-pointer. That's your license. If that's what you want to kill, go ahead and do it. But you're going to wait for that big fella you got on that trail camera. If you get him, good. A1. But at least you know, if you didn't get him, you let that spike horn and that 4-pointer go, and next fall when you go back, the 4-pointer is going to be a 6 or maybe bigger. The spike horn is going to be a 4 or maybe bigger. So you're doing your own part in conservation right there. Hunting partner. There's nothing any more fun than having your hunting partners with you in the woods. I've done it for years. There used to be 6 of us. Go to the first camp, and the camp was so small, there was only 2 of us could eat at the table at one time, but we loved every minute of it. And we still hunt together, some of us. A lot of us are going our own ways now, getting older and stuff, but it's good to have a hunting partner with you, and you know where he is, and he knows where you am. You can hunt together. It'll move deer back and forth. One guy on one side of a ridge, one guy on another, and it really helps a lot of times. And there's nothing any better than sitting down in the evening to a backwoods camp, yarning off with your hunting buddies. That's one of the parts of deer hunting that everybody loves. In the fall of the year in a deer hunting camp, telling deer hunting yarns, whether they're true or false, you have to make that decision. But deer scents, great products out there on the market today. Cover scents, more or less the master human scent. Like I said before, I use, what little I use of it, I use what's called a scent killer. 99.9% effective. They say it's guaranteed. Spray it on your boots at all times. That covers your scent from walking, coming and going to your tree stand. Spray it on your clothes. Let it dry. They say it works for days. But you just can't come back to the camp and hang all this stuff up behind the stove, the wood stove, with the smoke, the food smells from cooking, the cigarette smoke and all the rest, and put it on the next day and think you're going to go out in the woods and be scentless. You got to keep this gear in a separate garbage bag, hung out on the side of your camp or in your woodshed or whatever, so that no other scents get on it. None. It's been sprayed down. You keep it that way by putting it in a separate garbage bag, even your boots, together. And the next day when you go out to go hunting, you get this gear and you put it on. And that's good advice right there, because that helps you. Deer don't smell you. He don't know you're there. Deer calls. Always have them with you. Some areas, grunt calls are deadly. Like I said, I know some of my hunting buddies got pretty near to the camp and found out they left the deer grunt home. They would leave and go home to get it, because they know without it, their chances is cut down big time. So pick up the good multi-purpose grunt calls. They anywhere from a light squeak to sound like a hog snorting, whatever you want. It's all there in one call. You can get your doe bleats, your calf calls, and there's so many out there in the market, but now you got a little idea what I'm talking about. You make that decision on that and ask the store tender or keeper, whatever, you know, what's the best bleat call you got, what's your best grunt calls, and the whole deal. And make sure, if you're going to do these things, do a little practicing before the season. Make sure you got the right reed that's going to make, you don't want an old raspy sounding, don't you worry, they'll know each other calls. They know what's out there. And you want this call to sound as much like a buck grunting, if he makes a deep grunt or a light grunt, whatever. And your deer bleat, you want it sounding like a doe bleating because she's in heat and she's trying to draw a buck into her. So that's what you got to look for. Top of the line equipment, nothing else. Ain't gonna help you one bit. You got to have top of the line gear. Know your deer behavior. Deer will change from spring to summer to fall. They change the feeding habits, they change the bidding habits. In the summer months, when the fur is thin on them, they're out next to the lakes and the open meadows where the breeze and wind can get on them and keep the flies and mosquitoes off them. And when early fall comes, the hair on the body's going to start getting denser for the cool weather coming. They'll change the habit. So you learn how these animals change the habits, and you can stay with them year round. They'll move from one feed to another. Acorns start falling. They're going to be in the hardwood. Mushrooms start growing in the big woods after a rainstorm. They're going to be in there after the mushrooms. So you got to be going around looking for these signs, looking for these habits at all times. If you love deer hunting, it's not work. It's a passion. You love doing it. Find her. Alright, you get out in the woods in early September, early October. Be looking for these signs. You see a hooking, brand new hooking on an altar or a little tree. You say, man, they're starting early this fall. Well, maybe that's not the case. Maybe they're just getting the velvet off the horns from late summer. They have to rub this velvet off and shine them horns up to look pretty for the girls. So that's telling you he's in the area. You see his hooking line. Then you're going to be finding a little later in the month, the moon comes full, he's going to start down putting some scrapes down for the pre-rut. And I see these as early as the 10th, 12th of October some years if we get a cool fall. So be looking for these things. Keep watch of this stuff. That's telling you he's there. Now the rest is up to you. What I've just told you in this summarized version I'm doing here for you. You got the weapon. You know it's working and you know how to shoot it. You got the gear, you got everything with you. You know he's there. The rest is up to you. Now, the last thing I want to touch on here is respect conservation, like I just got done telling you a little earlier. You've got to start realizing that we kill them all, what's going to be left for the rest of the hunters. If you got it in your mind, you got a tag, a rifle hunting tag with you, and you want to let the spike horns and the four-pointers go, that's the decision you're going to make. It's your tag. And go after that big buck. You might not get him this fall, you might not get him next fall, but while you're waiting to get him, the ones that you let go, they're growing up now. They're soon going to be up in that same rank, nice big 6 and 8, 10 pointers. So you know that you're doing your part in the area you're hunting in to let some of these smaller bucks grow up. And within 2 or 3 years, you're going to be hunting all nice bucks in that area. And after a while, he's going to come in your scope. And there he is. And you can say, gee, that looks a lot like that spike horn I let go 3 or 4 years ago. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But if you believe it and you get him, you're going to feel way prouder for it. So that's the summary that we've pretty well covered everything I guess we got to cover. Alright, this is where we're going to get into some of the beer. Get caught. I messed that up good now, didn't I? Reminds me of the time I had the socks over my boots and the 2 hunters come up on me, and I was hoping they wouldn't see me with them socks over my boots, so I tried to hide it much as I could. And by and by, one of them said, do you know you got your socks on the outside of your boots? And I kind of looked down a little bit surprised and said, huh, must have been in a hurry this morning, put my boots on first. So that's the kind of scrapes you can get into, I guess, when you're out there trying to kill a deer. Okay, one thing you got to remember when hunting is know your weather. Weather? Wasn't I supposed to be saying weather? It reminds me of that. It reminds me of that sunny day I heard these fellas are swearing. And I snuck out to the edge of the woods and made sure they couldn't see me. And there was 2 guys swearing dragging this big 10-point buck by the hind legs through an alder swale. So I made sure they see me, waved to him, and went over, and I said, man, that's a nice buck. He said, yeah, and the work starts when you kill one of these. I said, well, what I see you doing here is making more work for yourself. I said, you got that thing by the hind legs, and them horns is fitching up in every alder here. Wouldn't it be easier to take the buck by the horns and drag it? He said, yes, sir, it would be. But we ain't going that way. Hello there, I'm Fred Gunsmoke Chatwin, and I've made a video called Gunsmokes Big Buck Hunting Tips. And this video, I'm sure, is going to help make you a better deer hunter and put one of these big boys on your wall. And also in this video, I'm going to be covering everything from where to hunt and how to hunt that area. All the gear you'll need, starting from your hunting boots right to the top of your head, your rifle, your bullets that you choose to shoot in your rifle, all my personal hunting secrets is going to be in there, and all about deer behavior from the time that doe has that little buck in late May, early June, his whole life right till the day he dies. Okay, these videos are going to be for sale here at my Wildlife Art Studio in Nildon, Cape Sable Island. I have the address here, my address, and Gunsmoke's Big Buck Hunting Tips. So if you're coming by this area and want to stop in, look at my work, my wildlife artwork I do, these videos will be for sale at here. And also, my daughter will be handling all the other sales. If you want to get in contact with her, and her email and phone number is here for you. She will be selling these videos if you're interested in purchasing one of these at the Land and Sea Restaurant, head of the Causeway to Barrington. And you just contact her if you're interested in purchasing one of these videos, and there'll be no problem. This video won't be available on YouTube, but it will be available for you to use on any format for your thumb drive. Thank you very much.